Tuesday. We have been inundated, frankly, at Council from around the country and also from around the Commonwealth of Kentucky by people that are pouring out their support for Kim Davis. So we will be back here next Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock for a rally in support of Kim Davis. And we anticipate that there will be a lot of people that are here to support her. Lots of people are calling, sending emails, contacting us in support of Kim Davis and wanting to know how they can help, and we're asking them to pray for Kim, because that's what Kim would want.
What specific constitutional right of hers is being violated?
Well, her constitutional right, well, several, actually. The original constitutional right was her free exercise of religion under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, the Kentucky Constitution, and the Kentucky Religious Freedom Restoration Act. That requires that if someone has a sincerely held religious belief, whether they're in private or public sector, that if there's a practice or policy that collides with that or burdens that belief, then the employer, be it government or private, has a right, depending upon what law you're looking at, to accommodate, or has a duty to accommodate.
A duty to accommodate?
A duty to accommodate. And so I'll get to you just a second. A duty to accommodate. And the real question at that point is, can the government or the employer accommodate your conviction? If no, then that's the end of the story. But if there's reasonable alternatives, the government has to use the least restrictive means available to accomplish their objective while still accommodating a person's religious belief and practice. Yes?
You spoke to Kim. What's her opinion of the 5 deputy clerks who have agreed now to follow the judge's orders and issue these marriage licenses from her office?
We didn't specifically get into what her opinion is of those clerks. However, I can tell you that Kim Davis has worked with these men and women for many years. They're friends, they're colleagues. She has the deep respect for all of them and collegiality. But she understands also that they were threatened with arrest. That's an ominous threat. When you're threatened with arrest versus doing an act, and 5 of the 6, because of that threat, which in itself is questionable, that the judge had jurisdiction to bring them in like that when they weren't parties to the case, they made a decision. And this person has to make their decision. She has no animosity to them at all.
Any disappointment with that decision?
She's not disappointed with the people. She's disappointed. I don't think she's disappointed. She hasn't expressed disappointment with anything. She's obviously expressed disappointment with the process here from a legal perspective, that that these claims of simple accommodation haven't been addressed, but instead she's here being incarcerated.
Mr. Staver, you mentioned that she thinks that the licenses that were issued this morning are invalid. The county attorney yesterday in court said that he believes they are. Who's right? And if she does get out of jail, what will she do to invalidate?
Well, her mother was a clerk of the court for 40 years and has a lot of experience in this particular area in terms of issuing licenses and marriage licenses. And she's been in this particular position for 27 years and now is the clerk of court. And these licenses are issued under the authority of the clerk of the court of Rowan County, and this clerk is not giving that authority to do so.
Will Ms. Davis file suit, or will the Family Foundation file suit to void those licenses?
We haven't talked about that. We're focused right now on getting Ms. Davis her freedom.
2 other clerks have said in Kentucky that they are not going to issue licenses as well.
Right.
Have you been in touch with them? Have there been any movement against them? Are they afraid now that they're going to be hauled off?
We have been contacted by other clerks in Kentucky. We've been contacted by other clerks in other parts of the country. We haven't talked to any clerks in Kentucky that I'm aware of. They may have called our office, but I've been focused on other matters, obviously. In Kentucky, since yesterday's hearing, I don't know what they're thinking. You know, I do know that we filed suit in North Carolina on behalf of the magistrate judges. They had a similar issue, and the legislature convened and they passed a legislation that accommodated their conscience, and we dropped the suit. There are simple fixes to some of these issues rather than incarcerate innocent people.
So you're talking about...
Go to the Sixth Circuit?
Pardon me?
Does your appeal on the writ for habeas corpus both go to the Sixth Circuit?
Yes.
So you're appealing to the same bodies that have rejected your prior appeals?
They haven't rejected our prior appeals, if you understand the legal process. Our underlying appeal with regards to the injunction is still pending. Never been ruled upon, not briefed. It's in a briefing schedule.
Are you optimistic about that ruling?
Let me finish my answer to your question. What we filed was a request for a stay of the implementation of the lower court order, which is an extraordinary request. They're hard to get. That's what the court declined to hear. That's what the Supreme Court declined to give. That's what the Supreme Court declined. Never has the merits of the underlying injunction been ruled upon, number one. Number two, yes, we're going to go to the Sixth Circuit on that. However, we have other options with regards to a habeas outside of and inside the federal courts. So we haven't made a decision yet as to where we will pursue that habeas.
Are you profiting from Ms. Davis's situation?
Do you ask that question of the ACLU?
I can.
Yeah, ask them.
Well,
Is that a...
Who should make the next move? You say the governor or the legislature? The governor, an attorney for the governor's office, said yesterday that he had no authority to change the form, and the legislature doesn't meet until January. So
It's the same governor who already modified the form. So who are you going to believe? Someone who says they can't change the form when they already modified the form? When obviously they can modify the form, and he has the power to be able to do that.
are you calling on him to do that right now?
Absolutely.
He gets out of jail.
She's in incarceration here, not because of anything she's done, but because of what the governor has failed to do. The governor could have resolved this very easily, like he resolved his attorney general's conflict, and I respect that. It was an expensive resolution of conscience. That was his decision. He could easily resolve this, too, by an executive order to address these marriage licenses.
Well, what do you think about the judge's argument that public elected officials cannot pick and choose what orders to obey?
The matter of fact here is that even the President of the Senate filed a brief that said, since the 5-4 opinion by the Supreme Court, the laws regarding marriage have been completely shredded. And it is up to the General Assembly to come back in and readdress these, because right now they don't make sense the way they're written. So the fact of the matter is, she has asked for a reasonable accommodation. She hasn't gotten a hearing on that before Judge Bunning yet, although it's very simple to do. But I can also tell you that she cannot violate, and she will not violate, her conscience, just like the Attorney General, who is the sole elected law enforcement officer to defend the Commonwealth of Kentucky, has a duty to defend Kentucky. And when that duty was requested last year, he raised his conscience as an impediment to doing so, and he got a reasonable accommodation, which was actually quite a significant accommodation because he's the top law enforcement official, and it was an expensive accommodation. That's fine. All she's asking for is the same thing.
Is it a good thing for our country to have elected officials simply ignore federal court orders?
You know, you might want to ask that of a lot of different individuals. For example, Mayor Gavin Newsom in San Francisco, who just celebrated the 10th year of what he did in 2004, in which he ignored clear state law and other orders and began issuing same-sex marriage licenses. What Kim Davis is doing is nothing unusual in the history of our country.